Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today with Sim Moselle, Talent Acquisition Director with Moneris. Hi, Sim. So happy to
Hi.
have you. So last week, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the EVP. Last week, we talked about employer branding. And this time, we're talking about recruitment marketing, right? And so some people might be confused between what's the difference. Marketing is marketing, and you have the answer to that. So do you want to kind of start off by talking a little bit about what the difference is between the employer branding piece or the marketing piece, let's say, of organizations, and then what it looks like from a recruitment marketing perspective?
Yeah, for sure. Again, thank you for having me here. This is really exciting. When I think of an employer brand, I always think of, what you think when you see the brand. Like, Coca-Cola, probably the most widely known brand across the world. You always know that you're going to get a, cold, bubbly drink or whatever, right? So that to me is the brand. But the EVP is actually the, what employers give in return for the employees that are working for them. I think if you heard a ding, that was probably my computer, and I don't know why I closed everything off, but it's when there's a message.
My text too is like, is that closed down? Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I think when a message comes in, it still opens it up. So I'm sorry about that. Just to say, so marketing, marketing is marketing, like you said. We looked at it as, how do we actually apply product marketing techniques to the employer brand? And so when we were creating our EVP, we said the candidates are the customers and our EVP is the product.
I love that. The candidates are the customers. I think a lot of organizations forget that, right? Or they do such a great job of the ad that maybe they might drop the ball in terms of how they're treating the candidate through the interview process too, right? So it's more than just kind of the advertising being placed on LinkedIn or whatever it is. So I'm curious though, like, can you talk to us about what you've seen in terms of the evolution of recruitment marketing? Because people are just really starting to talk about it now that we're going through this huge talent shortage, right?
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because how I got here is, I think I was at a conference and I met someone who actually did this for a living. And I really wanted to tap into this individual, and they were actually between gigs at the time. So I had him come and take a look at everything that we were doing and kind of create a gap analysis report, which I then took and I said, okay, what can we implement from here? And, it was quite interesting, where we could go and all of the things that we could do. So we started working on it, like I said, with our EVP, articulating our EVP, taking it to the next level, that kind of thing. And we came up with a really, large recruitment marketing plan. And then we started to work with our marketing team to kind of, implement it one by one. And it was a lot. Our marketing team is really focused on ensuring that our products and services are marketed to merchants and customers. So, it became really evident that we needed someone on our team to focus on it, while working very closely, obviously, from a branding perspective and everything. But, that's, I think more and more companies are seeing that because, it's a competitive market. We all know how competitive it is out there. And it's really important that, especially if you're not a household name like Coke, that you can actually get the attention of candidates that you're trying to attract.
Absolutely. So what have you seen in terms of, the shift over the last couple of years in recruitment? Because, you've had a wonderful career in recruitment spanning across different industries. And you've lived through, the last recession. We still remember what that felt like. I do, right? And how easy it was to find talent back then. And then, getting into 2019, we were looking at the war for talent was back on. People were starting to talk about it, but it was nowhere near what we're seeing today with, I think we're at like still 1 million job openings across the country in Canada, right? So what changes have you seen over the last couple of years in recruitment, and how have you been able to adapt to those changes?
Yeah, sure, for sure. We can all talk about the Great Resignation, the Great Reset due to the pandemic. I think, employees or people generally felt that they want more than a paycheck, right? And they're pretty vocal about what they expect from their employer, and they're looking for purpose. Quite often, they're looking for, what's my employer doing in terms of the environment, or, DEI, right?
Yeah.
So I think those things have changed. I think remote work, right, has enabled people to make different career choices. um, I don't know, like it's just there was a talent shortage in 2019, um,
Mhm.
and it just kind of got worse. You'd think it would have gotten better because a lot of people were out of work, but the people that were out of work actually, like at least from our industry, they weren't the skills that we needed, right? So a lot of
Right.
service industry, etc., unfortunately, were impacted, but they weren't those skilled technical people or professionals that we're looking for. And I think it's more of a global market too. So American companies have come to Canada to tap
Yes,
in, and things like that. So
absolutely. So how do you make sure that the right talent is finding your positions then, right? So, just in terms of, so you're posting these roles. Typically organizations will post the roles on their website. Oftentimes they don't post all their roles on their website, right? Some positions get missed, or sometimes there's confidential roles, et cetera, et cetera. So how are you making sure as an organization that the right people are seeing the right roles for themselves?
that's a great question. So I mean, we do post all of our jobs externally. I would say 99% of jobs externally.
Mhm.
They are, scraped by the aggregators.
Yeah.
It's great. We have subscriptions to, other large, should I not mention the names, but obviously, LinkedIn, Indeed, we've
Yeah.
subscribed to those organizations, and we have been doing a lot more. We've invested a lot more in sponsoring. We've invested a lot more in, having targeted ad campaigns through those organizations so that we can target the right talent to look at our job postings. But I think what's helping even more is, tapping into our social networks, because a lot of people know people with like skills and like industries and things like that. So, tapping into them through social, through, creating content that might be interesting for them. Keeping in touch, with people who leave the organization, trying,
Great.
trying, seeing maybe, they're later on in their career and they've learned new skills. Can they come back? What else? Making sure that we have really good messages when we go out and we source people and tap them on the shoulder to see if they're interested in our jobs. We've also started, back to job fairs and things like that to meet people face to face.
Right.
So.
I think I may have seen that you had posted something about boomerangs on LinkedIn, or Moneris had. So I'm curious about that, because there's a certain level of maturity I feel that an organization's leadership has to have to be open to having boomerangs come back. I think sometimes people take it personally when folks leave their teams. And sometimes they're leaving because of poor leadership, or there's the fit isn't there, but sometimes they're leaving because they just can't get their next promotion internally, right? So do you want to talk a little bit about that idea around boomerangs? And also, I've seen with some Fortune 500 clients of ours, they've actually had alumni, right? So they have these LinkedIn alumni groups, and they're always interacting, which is a great source of talent for them to be able to kind of come back, but also get referrals from these folks. So what's your thinking around that?
We actually came across it kind of by accident because we realized that, we were having a lot of people who were rehires. And then we started to look at the data and we thought, well, it's a significant number of rehires lately. So why are they, interested in rejoining us? And so
Right.
we took a cross section, we interviewed them, and asked them, what was it that made you think about Moneris as your next career move? And a lot of it was that they had kept in touch with their last leader. So, it's important for leaders to keep in touch with talent that they would, think about bringing back, or they'd like to bring back, and maintain contact, because you never know where the paths may cross again. And so we were really proud that many people wanted to come back, that they'd had a great experience. And people don't always leave because they have a bad experience. Sometimes they want to try something different and something new, and that's something that should be encouraged and celebrated by their current manager. Because
That's fantastic.
perhaps they inspired that person to want to grow and expand their skills or something like that.
Absolutely. You're making me think of all of the money, and I'm not trying to put us out of business, but all of the money that, look, the recruitment industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, probably trillion actually in 2022, given, every recruitment business is, working their tails off these days. But I'm wondering about the investment, because it's easier, sure, to just kind of, call up a firm and have them go and find talent, but it's kind of a Band-Aid solution in a way. It's just kind of this one-off, like if you're really busy or if you're short-staffed or if you don't have the network. But the plan that you have, rolled out that takes a little bit longer, it seems like it's got more teeth to it in terms of continuing to yield results. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, yeah, definitely like an alumni is one strategy. We also have, an early talent strategy. So, we have for the last 5 or 6 years, we've been bringing in interns, and that has grown from a handful to, I think at one point we had 50. For the size of our company, that's a significant number. And we've also been tracking how many of those individuals, have converted into full-time employees after they've completed their education. And so this year we, with the support of our technology leadership, we've launched a program called Start at Moneris, and it's for new graduates. And they will go through a curated 1-year program, which will be, full of development and that's another sort of, feeder pool into our technology area, because as we know, there is a huge, like if there's a demand for talent, there's a bigger demand for technology talent specifically. Yes. And so, it's kind of like if you can't buy, you might have to build as well. So we're looking at all of those options.
That's amazing. So in terms of, I know that you've done some fun things in terms of trying to attract talent, and tell us about the, some of the things that you've tried or that's yielded results or that's been fun to put out there.
Yeah, I think, with our content and, I won't mention her name because I don't want anyone to to hire her away. But Jacqueline, right. She's done a really great job, and a lot of the content that we're putting out is authentic. It's real. It's it involves our people, or it involves sort of what's cool, or trendy. Yeah, trendy. Thank you. That's the word. And so we did, for example, when Wordle got really hot all of a sudden, we did a Wordle post on LinkedIn. And it was one of the ones that got a really great engagement from people.
That's fun.
We also did the boomerang one. We did some posts around intern day. So we put our interns through a fun, Jay's game, and they also, had a great session the day after. So we posted some of those things. We did a video about what's it like to work in sales. So those were some of the ones that come to mind. We've done a lot, but those were fun, and we have a few more things planned.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. So how do you tap into your own employees then to market your company? Like I've always wondered, when organizations are sending, let's say, their sales team to conferences, I think that's happening again, right? 2022. How come they're not coming back with like a list of attendees, for example, because the company paid for you to go on that trip. So that information should come back to the company to help you continue to hire great talent, right? So what are some other ways that you're able to tap into employees for referrals beyond kind of boomerangs and alumni?
Well, we have a referral program with a reward, a bonus. So that's helpful. We actually even extended that to our interns this summer, and we made it a smaller reward with a shorter qualifying period so that we could also tap into our interns. We tap into our hiring managers. we want them to keep in touch with alumni, but also, use their networks to post and share our opportunities. When we attend conferences, we do network. I haven't thought of getting the attendee list. That's a really great one. I think we used to do that years ago, but we should consider.
Back in the day where we had to dial for dollars and look up magazine. That's so funny. Yeah, old school tricks, guys.
For sure. Yeah, so we do tap into our employees as much as we can as well. And keeping in mind that we also want a diverse workforce, right? So we have to be conscious of that as well.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Well, actually, so with that, in terms of working with leaders, I'm wondering, has there been a shift in terms of how leaders have seen recruitment? Because traditionally, leaders see recruitment as being an HR issue or a TA issue, when really, it can quickly become like your problem with whatever department that you're leading, when employees start leaving because they're frustrated, because they're overworked, right? Because you can't find the right talent. So we hear a lot from HR professionals saying we're getting a lot of pressure, those pressures, but the leaders aren't necessarily tapping into their respective networks. I just spoke with somebody the other day who said that they were getting LinkedIn recruiter licenses for some of their leaders so that they could go back and look at people that they used to work with in previous, organizations or on boards and that kind of thing. So what's your sense about how engaged leadership needs to be to get on board and start kind of rolling up their sleeves and supporting talent acquisition in a different way?
Yeah, I mean, we've always said recruiting is a team sport. It's not just talent acquisition that has to do their part. We hand off, it's like a relay race. We hand off the candidate to the hiring manager. So it's really up to the hiring manager to take it to the finish line. Obviously we'll help with the offer negotiation, all that, but they really have to close the candidate to a certain extent. So, we advise our hiring managers to make sure that they are equipped with the EVP messages, what's in it for the candidate. And they're not only looking to screen out people because they don't meet certain criteria, but to screen them in. Think about ways that individual can contribute to the organization. So we're, most of our hiring managers are on board, and they work very closely with us. We haven't gotten them LinkedIn licenses or anything like that, but sometimes we ask them to help us identify, if we have hard to find skills or they're really, really technical, we'll work with them to really identify, a short list, for example. So yeah, it's definitely a partnership.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to organizations that are struggling to identify talent, and maybe organizations that are smaller or not very well known, maybe don't have the employer branding or even the product branding yet, right? What advice would you give them in terms of maybe how to start looking at their recruitment branding when they're building a team?
I mean, you don't have to be large to articulate your EVP, right? So I would start with articulating your EVP. Ensuring your job postings have that information there for applicants to read and say, what would it be like to work there? What would I get out of working there? And it doesn't have to be about money. It can be about, career growth or skills or, a different environment, a small up and coming company versus a full sort of more, established company. So definitely job postings, social is almost free, right? So, making sure that you're on those channels. And there are some ad agencies who will actually provide advice because they get paid when they promote your job. So you can tap into that, networking groups, things like that to figure out what you need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So talking about the job descriptions, we were talking about it before. I had posted a poll a couple of days ago asking my network to vote on, whether they thought that employers are creating kind of a false narrative around the role or even the organization with some of the job postings. So we hear a lot of, especially in this market, we're hearing a lot of people say, I thought the role was this, turns out it was that. A lot of it comes down to strategy, for example, right? So it was an inflated title, or it sounded, like a much bigger, more strategic role when really I was busy, doing much more operational or transactional work. And then that really hurts the organization too, right? So there's definitely a frustration because 90% of respondents out of over 200 were saying, yeah, they feel that organizations are inflating, or not even inflating, more like glossing over, I guess, or really marketing the hell out of a role when it's not reality. What's your thought on that in terms of how to be realistic around what your strengths are and are not as an organization when you're marketing roles?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, truthfulness and authenticity is the most important thing, but also, as a marketer, like you're kind of marketing to the masses, right? So, it may turn out that one part of the company isn't exactly the way you've described the whole company. That could happen.
Right.
It's you have to leave it a little bit to the candidates to do their own questioning, yeah, and research during the interview process. Ask those, maybe they're hard questions to ask, but find a way to ask those questions. Get the reactions from the recruiter, from the hiring manager. You can look up employers, as we know, on places like Glassdoor to get some some of the truth. Although you can't always believe everything there either. But at the end of the day, I think you have to get as much information as you can and make the right decision. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, there may be some situations where it wasn't what was promised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I think that there's a lot of candidates now too who are not necessarily attracted to large, shiny, organizations, especially if they were quickly restructured out of those in the middle of the pandemic, right? So I know that a lot of people are really attracted to smaller, not tiny, but just, small, medium-sized companies that, are very secure in their values. They know what their values are, they stand by their values, and they're able to prove that very quickly versus, so I think organizations shouldn't be concerned necessarily about how big or small they are. If they have the right values, they can still be attractive if they're articulating them, right? And not just putting a laundry list of bullet points of, here, this is the criteria you need to meet in order to get an interview with us, right?
So what's the question?
Yeah, so the question, is that you or me? So the question is, I mean, Moneris is not huge, but you're still able to, attract great talent, right? And so do you feel that having some of these marketing efforts where you're talking about the EVP and what you care about and what you stand for has really made the difference also? Like, do you see that candidates are asking questions around those things now more than they were in 2019, for example?
I think everybody asks about the culture. So that's always a question that we need to answer. And we've been working very hard on defining our culture. And we started, like I said, before we got to our EVP, we started with our purpose, our vision, our values. Our values have been in place for quite a while, and we test everything that we do against the values. So we can talk about that in interviews, and I've heard my team saying, when I get that question, I talk about my own experience and how those values have shaped what I do and things like that. So again, it's an interview is a conversation. It's two ways, right? So I think candidates have to feel empowered to ask those questions and probe if they don't, if they feel that maybe it isn't congruent with what they've read or heard.
Yeah, that's a really good point in terms of, having the opportunity to, or taking the opportunity in interview to really ask the questions around the values and not just taking it for granted that whatever you see kind of in print is reality, and to be able to dig down. I've heard from some folks that they felt that the hiring manager didn't necessarily appreciate being asked about the values, which I thought was interesting. Like, do you feel that it can sometimes put leaders in the hot seat to,
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard that personally, but I guess if the leader maybe isn't feeling, engaged, they may find it difficult to answer that question. So
Yeah.
I think as an interviewer of the company, you should be. It's hard to sell something you're not bought into, right?
Right. Well, I think some leaders also are still acclimating to this new reality where candidates are asking tough questions, right, about their leadership style and what they're experiencing in the organization versus just, answering questions that are being directed at them. So I think that it's a shift for everybody still. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have workshops. So, I would recommend having workshops, especially if you're going to be doing a large, recruitment drive, that you sit down with your hiring managers and give them some tools on how to answer those tough questions, some talking points, maybe some coaching on how to hone their interview skills.
That's a great idea. I love that. Okay, good. Just checking here to see if there's, we do have a question here about describing the EVP, right? And the product employees. So if you could I just want to go back to that so people really understand. I want to make sure people understand, because I think a lot of organizations still think, well, if I just get marketing to brand this, then it'll be okay. But not every organization, I should say, has their employee value proposition even laid out. So can you just quickly walk us through the steps in terms of building blocks to get to the recruitment marketing?
Yeah. So, when we started working on our EVP, we actually segmented our talent, and we created personas for each of those segments.
Okay.
We did those by using focus groups and interviews, and we also looked at our engagement survey results to see how they aligned. And then we, crafted the EVP statements based on, what people find, attractive about working for Moneris. And then we came up with our EVP statement, and those, the three things, make connections, oh my gosh, I know this, making connections, making a difference, and making career moves. And those are our three EVP statements. And then, we work those into our, marketing campaigns and all of our assets, whether it's the website or any digital asset, any posts, things like that.
So you have a unique individual leading the recruitment branding in terms of somebody who has worked in recruitment and had a background in marketing, right? So most people or most organizations are going to find that kind of a unicorn. Do you feel, though, that it's important that marketing spends time with recruitment to understand the ins and outs of what they're facing to do a better, like if you're only going to pull on your marketing team, like how helpful do you think that is?
Oh, absolutely. I think, it really helps to have someone who's kind of lived in the shoes of the recruiters, because they know, what's going to be helpful. They also know the channels. They also know, some of the, messaging that resonates and things like that. But, obviously, if you're a good marketer, or if you're a great recruiter and you have an interest in marketing, there's ways that, you can learn that. And I think there's books on the topic and things like that. So I think actually there's one called Give and Get Recruitment Marketing or something like that. I should, yeah, you should.
Give and Get Recruitment Marketing? Yeah,
let me find the name of the author for you. Anyways, we probably don't have time. Maybe we can put it in the chat after.
But that's what we'll do, is we'll post a link to that book later afterwards. So okay, I didn't realize there was a book like that. That's fantastic.
Give and Get Employer Branding by Charlotte Marshall and Brian Adams.
Okay, so maybe email that to me. I'm gonna stick it under the LinkedIn Live, and we've already run out of time. Yeah, so we don't have any questions today, but I mean, look, this was great, and I think that organizations need to be able to seize the opportunity to, spend a little bit more time on recruitment marketing. So thanks so much for joining me today, Sim. It was great. It was, you're so knowledgeable, and Moneris is just incredible. I mean, you guys are doing an amazing job. So, here we go. Give and Get Employer Branding by Brian Adams and Charlotte Marshall. Yes. Okay. I see it. I'm going to copy that, and and it's in the chat. That's fantastic.
Good.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Sim.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. I'm very lucky to be part of an organization that works on this.
Absolutely. Well, good luck with everything. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Take care. Bye.